Hey brother! Ben, there are a lot of villains in Harry Potter. There's the Death Eaters, there's Belatrix, who's kind of on a level of her own, there's Umbridge, who's on a whole other level, Barty Crouch Jr., who's a freaking mad scientist and totally underused, and then of course the big bad himself, Voldemort. But you know who never really gets cast so much as the villain and yet is responsible for just so freaking much of the damage? Ex-Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge. Today, we discuss why he is kind of the worst. When I picture Cornelius Fudge, the first thing I think of is the lime green bowler hat. But the first thing I think of otherwise is just sort of a bumbling politician who fell backwards into a position maybe he wasn't totally qualified for. A position much more suited for someone like Dumbledore or Barty Crouch Sr. But for the first 4 books, he seems decent enough, maybe a little incapable, but hey, nothing really too bad has happened just yet, right? I mean, well, other than Cedric dying and Sirius escaping, but yeah, we'll get to that. All I mean though is that for a long time, he is able to skate by because it's easy to be in charge when nothing's going wrong. But you can tell he's not even sure if he thinks he's qualified for the position, because anytime things do go wrong, his main concern isn't how to fix it, it's how to make sure he's not blamed for it. His first real test is when Sirius Black escapes, and I will say he does seem to act appropriately, other than being after the wrong guy. But I'll give him a pass on that because at that point, even Dumbledore thought Sirius was guilty. But look at his actions when Sirius escapes. He immediately recognizes that Harry is in danger and pardons him of his underage magic crime, blowing up his aunt.
The Ministry doesn't send people to Azkaban for blowing up their aunt.
He immediately sets the full force of Dementors out to capture Sirius and is very nearly successful. That being said though, there are still a few blunders in Prisoner of Azkaban. For one, he still almost executes Buckbeak just because Lucius Malfoy, a known ex-Death Eater, complains about it. And even after Dumbledore explains how and why Sirius is innocent, Fudge continues his pursuit of Sirius rather than refocusing his efforts on Peter Pettigrew. He does this because he thinks the public will think he was foolish for losing Black. The Daily Prophet's going to have a field day. We had Black cornered and he slipped through our fingers yet again. All it needs now is for the story of that hippogriff's escape to get out and I'll be a laughing stock. That is the first real showing of Fudge's true colors and his start down a much darker path. Rather than listening to wise counsel though, he dismisses Dumbledore because he's afraid of looking foolish. He's intimidated by Dumbledore, thinks Dumbledore could have his job if he wanted it. Let's be honest, he totally could. And that fear controls him. It's the same reason he also dismisses Lupin, because he's a werewolf and he's afraid that people are going to think he's crazy for listening to him. The irony is, of course, that had he been more concerned about doing his job than having his job, he might have been remembered as one of the greatest ministers of all time. But instead, he basically paves a nice, easy road for Voldemort to return upon. God, I swear, some people think Umbridge is awful, but who do you think hired her? But we'll get to that, because his biggest blunder, the thing that makes him the actual worst, comes at the end of the Goblet of Fire when Voldemort returns. What happens is Voldemort comes back, and then less than an hour later, the worst thing possible for Voldemort, like worst case scenario, happens. And that is that immediately, less than an hour, the highest level of government is aware of his return. Like, whoops, there goes the element of surprise. It's like we said last week, never hire Voldemort to plan a wedding for you. Voldemort is a guy who likes to operate in the dark. He does not want people to be aware that he has returned, and Fudge finding out about it should have been the end of him before it even started. Because in less than a day, less than 24 hours after he had returned, the entire wizarding world could have known about it. But no, this is Fudge's great, horrible, stubborn, selfish mistake. He fails to publicly openly and officially make a statement to the public that Voldemort is back. He fudged up bad. Where Voldemort could have had less than a day worth of secrecy, Fudge gives him an entire year. An entire year until Fudge himself with other Ministry officials literally sees him in person in the Ministry of Magic.
He's back.
A year of time in which Voldemort is able to operate in the shadows and rebuild his following. A year during which old known Death Eaters could have been named or questioned or detained or just anything. Ugh, the Death Eaters. Fudge. 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 Okay, so here's the thing. Maybe you could argue that Fudge shouldn't just announce that the worst wizard ever is back only on the words of a teenage boy, even though he did return from the center of the maze with a dead body. But actually, you can't argue this. Do you know why? Because of the Quidditch World Cup. The Quidditch World Cup is happening 14 years after the fall of Voldemort. 14 years after the Death Eaters aren't supposed to exist anymore. After they're supposed to have been rounded up, or at least supposed to have been imperious during Voldemort's time. They're not supposed to be there. And yet, there they are. Not just there, but they're torturing muggles. Their beliefs obviously still strong, just lurking beneath the surface, just waiting for a rallying point. The dark mark itself appeared in the sky. But what does Fudge do about this? Absolutely nothing. The most infamous blood purists known to wizard kind, the soldiers of the wrong side of the worst wizarding war, are out in public torturing muggles, and Fudge does nothing. He does not condemn their behavior. He does not investigate their identities. He does not even make a statement. Instead, the next day, the Daily Prophet's report is mostly about what a blunder it was for the Ministry that this happened at all. And you know what? That is one of the only times Rita Skeeter ever gets anything right, because it was a blunder. Fudge should have been available immediately to assure the public that the identities of these Death Eaters was being investigated, that they were taking this very seriously. But again, nothing, which is extra awful when you consider how many Death Eaters were actually employed by the Ministry. Indeed, how embarrassing it might have been for Fudge had people learned that he was employing and perhaps even being influenced by some of these people. But no, as always, Fudge is more concerned with having his job than doing it. Instead of listening to wise counsel, he fears it, sees it as a threat. Instead of fighting Voldemort, he instead condemns those who say he's back. He even calls Dumbledore himself a crackpot. Remember his earlier actions in The Prisoner of Azkaban when Sirius escaped? How he immediately recognized the danger, pardoned Harry for his underage magic charges? Instead, for Voldemort, he dismisses the danger, tries to convince everything that they are completely safe, and tries to get Harry expelled from school for, again, underage magic. Underage magic he had to perform to save his cousin from Dementors sent to attack them by a Ministry official. Did I mention he hired Umbridge? I mean, God, that could have been the whole video, Ben. Hey, brother. Ben, Cornelius Fudge, right? He hired Umbridge. Seen another life, brother! The good news for the rest of the wizarding world, though, was that Harry recognized Fudge for what he was, recognized good from evil, and no matter how much they threw at him, wouldn't back down. And hey, on a happier Harry Potter note, let me just thank everyone who has so far taken the Super Carlin Brothers survey. We have been going through the results, some of which are really fun and surprising, like how we have mostly Ravenclaws in the audience, or at least the greatest number, which is surprising. I thought it'd be Hufflepuffs, but I don't know, maybe they just couldn't find the survey. We also learned that our editor Derek has been definitively proven wrong about what you should call water fountains. He thought bubblers. It's not, it's water fountains. More concerning, however, is the fact that 81% of you think narwhals are real. Guess I'm gonna have to go over that again. But let me just give one more shout out to Jordan B, our awesome moderator on our Discord server, for putting the whole survey together. By the way, if you are not a member of our Discord server, you should be. It is so much fun and probably the best Discord server out there. We've got custom emojis, we talk in all caps, we've got Julia, she's from Texas. I mean, I don't want to brag, but other YouTubers have told us it is their favorite server, which is saying something because they have their own servers. If you want to join us, you can do so via our Patreon page for $3 a month. Ben and I are in there almost daily, link in the description. But anyway, back to the matter at hand. Ben, my question for you and everyone else is, what do you think? Is Fudge responsible for the return of Voldemort? Where does he rank on your list of Harry Potter villains? Let me know your thoughts in the towel section down below. These socks are amazing! Guys, thanks for watching. As always, please remember to like this video if you haven't already and subscribe so you don't miss any future Harry Potter action from us. If you'd like to see us rank the different Defense Against the Dark Arts professors, you can click this video right here, or if you'd like to know what Dudley's Dementor vision was, you can click this video right here. But Ben, that's all I've got for you today, man. I will see you in another life, brother.